This is Strange New Trek, a podcast about the life and times of Captain Christopher Pike. And now, your hosts. Sometimes in space, a regular crew member needs to take time off and can't show up for every episode. During those times, it's handy to have a special guest star like we do this week. I'm your host, Captain Jeremy Vilmur, and joining me this week are my number one dog, Commander Dog, and our Chief Security Officer who doubles as our Community Theater Director, Rico E, that's no bloody A, B, C, or D, Anderson. What's happening, Rico?
Best intro ever, I swear. And of course, I've never gotten the Star Trek intro like that. That's a first. It's a first.
Oh, it's your initials work perfectly going into it, so it was kind of hard to not shoot for it there, you know.
It really does, and I never thought it in that way. But on top of that, it's great to be here. It's great to not see you, but talk to you and reconnect because it's been a minute.
Oh yeah, it's been a little while. I do appreciate you taking the time to come on. My regular co-host Chris, he's off on City Alpha 5 taking care of some family business.
All right.
So I appreciate you taking the time to step in and help out, which we were talking about having you on anyway. So it's not like completely out of left field or anything.
Right. But it's great to be able to finally make that happen. And, something tells me it won't be the last time. So.
Absolutely. Well, and for anybody listening, if Rico sounds familiar, you've probably heard him in a video game, maybe Batman Arkham City. Or was it Arkham City? Arkham Knight.
Arkham Knight, yeah.
Or you saw him in TV shows like Dollhouse. You always play a cop, don't you?
You know what? Once upon a time, I played a lot of cops, and I had to stop doing it as much because you're at a point in your career where you don't want to do certain roles, and you also don't want to basically pigeonhole yourself.
Sure.
And you want to grow as an actor. You want to grow beyond just one or two lines in a TV show. You want to get what's considered a guest star, which is basically like you're the guest of the week. So you're in either every scene or a bunch of scenes or whatnot. And of course, there's recurring where you're coming back to the show more than once. And then series regular, you're basically on every episode the whole time. And the majority of the cop auditions and roles that I was booking and getting were the smaller lines. And it's not so much about the lines, but just growth in this industry requires that you stop doing certain things. And in my case, being a cop was a lot of
one of those things.
Yeah, it was just in that stratosphere, and I needed to get up past the ozone layer of my career. So yeah, not playing a lot of cops. I would gladly play a cop if it was one of the bigger roles, and of course, if it was a series regular, I'll be a cop all day, every day.
Right on. Anything you got? Anything cooking right now?
Yeah, I'm on the TV show Truth Be Told on Apple TV Plus. Yeah, it's a show that stars Octavia Spencer, Oscar winner Octavia Spencer, a two-time Emmy Award winner Ron Cephas-Jones from the TV show This Is Us, Mekhi Phifer, who's been in the game since the 90s, Tracy Toms and Tammy Roman, and just an amazing cast of actors. And we just wrapped our third season a couple of weeks ago, and every season we've had special guest stars for that season, like for the whole season. Mm-hmm. And season 1, we had Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. And season 2, we had Kate Hudson. And this season that we just wrapped, season 3, we had Gabrielle Union.
Oh,
so
yeah.
And I play Herbie on the shows. There are always scenes that take place in the biker bar on the show called The Knock. And I run the biker bar, so whenever there's scenes happening there, it usually involves me and somebody else within the cast. And Herbie's my name, and I make a mean drink.
Right on. So being on Apple TV, I take it you get the more limited run length for the seasons, right?
10 episodes, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's perfect, I think.
I would love for it to be more, to be honest.
Really?
But, yeah, I'm very old school when it comes to, 26 episodes and all that jazz.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about Strange New Worlds here, and they're doing 10-episode seasons right now.
that's the norm, I would say, nowadays with most streaming shows.
You know what? I first noticed it with a TV show called The Shield with Michael Chiklis. Their first season was 12 or 13 episodes.
Was it?
Yeah, and they only had one burner episode the whole season. Everything else went to the general story, which I thought was pretty cool. But we've been doing that for 20 years now, so I can see, like, I want to have some just, like, general TV writing back, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's the norm now. I mean, you know, I did not know that about The Shield. I did an episode of The Shield, so I would have remembered that, but here we are.
I must have seen you in that, because I've seen that show so many times. I practically get a credit just for watching it.
Yeah. Sean Ryan, you know, he created The Shield, he created SWAT, and, you know, I did that. I recur on SWAT also. That was the other part.
Well, hold on. He rebooted SWAT.
He rebooted SWAT.
SWAT was on TV when we were kids, Rico.
Oh, I know. Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
It was a great, hey, I loved it back then.
Oh, yeah, no, it's you know, all that stuff was great. I watch a lot of, like, MeTV now. I just watch a lot of TV from the 70s still.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get enough of the classics. I mean, there's just something different and something just wholesome and just great about, especially seeing them nowadays. They're all like period pieces. So you're seeing
absolutely
phone booths and technology not be what it is today. And
little time machines, yeah.
It's like, hey, any calls? You know, when you walk into a house, it's like, oh yeah, your girlfriend just called. She said to call you, as opposed to she can call you anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yep,
so
exactly.
It's funny nowadays when you look at it.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm going to assume that you caught every episode of Strange New Worlds pretty much as it rolled out.
Oh yeah, religiously.
Yeah, I found myself staying up till 1 a.m. to watch it.
Oh yeah. I could not wait for Thursday. Wasn't it Thursday?
Yeah, it was Thursdays. Yeah.
Yeah, I could not wait for Thursdays to come out quick enough. And when I was done watching the show, I couldn't wait for Thursdays to kick in. Sometimes if I was just too busy, I would, I wouldn't be able to see it that day. So it was like I may not see it until Friday or Saturday, which gives it less time before the next episode comes.
Oh, there you go. You run that together a little closer.
Yeah. Or sometimes I watch it twice because I just love the show.
Yeah, I got to tell you, there were a couple episodes in there, and as we discuss, I'll kind of hit which ones. But So what were your general feelings on the show?
I got to say, I was so excited about this show when I heard that it was coming out, and the opportunity to really tap into Pike's story and his life and knowing what we know from the Cage and how we knew there was Pike, we knew there was Number One, we knew there was Spock. And of course we got a little tickle of that with Discovery in season 2 with Pike and Spock and that storyline, and we saw Number One a couple of times. And so I believe they set it up beautifully in terms of saying, you know them, you know of them, now we're going to give you a little taste of it, and then bam, now we're about to do a series. I was over the moon, man, because I was like, I've always been a Pike fan, and of course, that's knowing the little that we know. I mean, we got in the 2009 movie and Into Darkness, some Pike also with Bruce Greenwood, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought he did a beautiful job of Pike, but this particular Pike with Anson Mount seems to be more of the original series type Pike, which it was. I thought it was captured beautifully.
Yeah, and I even discussed this years back when it was first teased at the end of Discovery Season 1 with our mutual friend Larry Nemechek. We were talking, I said, by the time episode 2 of Discovery Season 2 comes out, Anson Mount's Pike will be the Pike. He'll have more screen time than Jeffrey Hunter did.
Right. And with respect to Jeffrey Hunter, it's like he is definitely the worthy successor. I mean, I could not see anybody else play that role today.
No.
It's just so perfect. And I love what they did when they did the nod to Chris Hunter in that montage in the beginning. I forgot which episode it was.
Oh, that jump cut that they do?
Yeah.
I love that shot.
Right? And then they had Anson like in the same head position as Hunter, and then it just kind of morphed out. I was like, oh, this is going to be some good stuff. Man.
Yeah, they just jump cut. Because not everybody. We had a lot of knuckleheads at that point still trying to argue that Discovery wasn't Prime Universe. you know, whatever that's going to mean for whatever purpose that serves.
Right.
And that jump cut to me just kind of said, shut up. Same guy, same universe, same role. Here we go.
Well, it's also dumb because it's like if the producers are saying it's Prime Universe, then what else is there to argue? It's Prime Universe. You know, you can say in your head canon it's not, or you can try to cite examples of why it isn't, but it's like it doesn't matter. They're saying that it is.
Yeah, if the owners of the property say, guys, this is it, then that's it.
Yeah, what else is there to say?
Yeah.
So it's a dumb argument. There's no foundation but that taps into discussions of toxic fandom and gatekeepers and people who just want to be difficult for the sake of being difficult. And it's sad that people can not like something, people can have a critique about something, people can say what they want in terms of their opinion on something. But when you become ridiculous in the discussion and you just, I don't know, when you just become just difficult for no reason, it's just like, why is this breath being even taken right now?
Yeah.
Why is this air being? It's like it doesn't make sense. This is like you go on some of the comment discussion boards and you just read certain things, and I'm just like, guys, just enjoy Star Trek.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if you spend as much time on YouTube as I have in the last few years. I was watching a lot of the Star Trek news before all the stuff had rolled out. I mean, long before they announced Strange New Worlds or anything else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm watching, there's this handful of cats out there that put out, I swear, the same video every week about how Discovery's been canceled, Picard's never going to make it to air,
Right.
Paramount doesn't really own the rights to Star Trek, they're licensing them from J.J. Abrams. Just like all this ridiculous stuff, and they're repeating it week after week. And I'm just like, why do you do this to yourself, let alone your viewers or listeners, you know?
It's almost like they're trying to justify them saying things like, oh, it's not real Star Trek. It's only Star Trek in name only. Or kind of like what you were saying, oh, the name was licensed out to J.J. Abrams, so all of that doesn't exist within the canon. It's not canon. It's not connected. And it's like, it is canon. It is connected. It's the Spock that we've known and loved for over 50 years went back in time into this other universe, and that's where the current movies are. It's the same Spock. Stop it.
Yeah, it just...
Knock it off, guys.
It's like that time I got stuck waiting to meet Adam West and Burt Ward at a convention. My ex-wife left me there by myself, and I got to looking around at the rest of the line, and I could just think, you're not my people.
Why? Because they were younger? Or?
They were all younger, and I don't think they knew who they were going to meet, and they were all in costumes and all this stuff, and I'm like wearing a white button-down shirt and, dress boots.
I mean, don't underestimate the fandom.
No. I'm not taking it out on them. It's just that when you look around and you realize, oh, the rest of you guys and me, we're not actually on the same thing here. We're kind of coming at this from different points of view. So those guys on YouTube, may or may not be fans, but I know they're not with me,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I have a theory, and my theory is this. This is really towards the toxic people. Those type of fans will never be satisfied unless you de-aged everybody who's still around, or, and I say this respectfully, you resurrected and dug up everyone who passed and threw them on the sets, respectively, their respective sets, and continued their adventures. People want to not look at the fact that Star Trek's going to continue, and it has to continue with sometimes fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And the stories have to continue. And, whether we continue it in the original series timeline or the Next Generation timeline, it's going to continue. And the great thing is we have so much to dig into, which we are currently doing. We're back in the original series era. Hell, we went 100 years before with Enterprise. And now we're in the Next Gen era with Picard and with Lower Decks and with Prodigy. Come on, guys. And now we're even further in the future now that Discovery went 900 years up. And by doing that, we have 900 years of stuff that could be just thrown in there. Not thrown in there, but, that could be, talked about, discussed, and all this kind of stuff. Oh,
yeah, definitely. I think it's established and looked at, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what? Before we get into the actual legacy characters themselves, one of the things I always end up thinking about, and I would like to speak to you about and see, where you come in on this. All the way back in 2005, 2006, a group of fans over in the East Coast area had started to make a new web series called, was it Star Trek The Adventures Continue or Star Trek Phase 2, whatever it was at the time.
Right, yes.
And now you've made some fan films, and I'm curious. I think fan films kind of helped get us ready for recasting the classic roles.
Oh, yeah. It definitely helped to not ease the pain, but soften the blow of, hey, there is a very high possibility that if we do anything in relation to Kirk and Spock again, the early years, it's clearly going to have to be recast. And we're going to have to look at younger actors, and we're going to have to look at this, how that's all going to play out. And so when you have like Star Trek Phase 2 and Star Trek Continues, yeah, you're definitely looking into who could accurately portray these characters. And, it's great that we had those characters coming back in the way that they did.
Yeah.
Whether you like them or not, the point is they're there. And let's just be honest, all the independent films that were happening between Enterprise and Star Trek 2009 is one of the great things that kept the franchise going by the people who love it, the fans.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing.
Well, no, and you're true, because that was 5-6 years there where if it wasn't a fan production, you just didn't get new Star Trek.
You didn't get new Star Trek. I mean, you could always, go back to all the other shows, but there was no new material that was out there. Now, I want to say this, Jeremy. One of the things, and this is just my thing on this. I see fan films and independent type productions of course, the same franchise as slightly different in a lot of ways, because you can have fans who aren't in the business in any way, shape, or form wanting to put something cool together and get your friends and make the uniforms and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have that which could be looked upon and viewed as a fan film. But then you have some of the more, I guess, professional grade films, like Star Trek Continues, like Star Trek Renegades, which does push it a little up further past what would be considered a fan film in that respect. And I've always kind of looked at both of these different genres, or both of these. I've looked at this particular genre as two separate entities, and I've had people argue with me to the mat on that. But
yeah, I think there's okay, dog, I hear you, and I'll ask you a question here in a minute.
You did warn that as soon as you start talking.
Well, she gets kind of mouthy about Star Trek. She's young; she doesn't quite get it. So sometimes I just have to let her ask her questions.
But it's good when the young are passionate like we are. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
The future is bright. With the
Well, so I think where you're kind of drawing, not even drawing a line, where you're putting a soft barrier in place is kind of in between people not in the industry making fan films, like a fan production, but they don't have the training, they don't have the know-how, they don't have the background, but they have the passion and they have a camera.
Yeah, yeah.
And the guys who are in the industry, like James Kerwin, who directed some of Star Trek Continues.
Right.
Have you ever talked to him? That guy is scary smart.
Oh, yeah. I know James. And
he's... when I first talked to him and found out he was an astrophysicist, I was like, "Oh, that explains your movies, then." Okay,
there you go. That draws a lot.
But when he comes in and he's got the lighting technique down, and his director of photography can figure out exactly how to frame and light the scene, and then he goes in and he goes, "Okay, and now we're going to throw a 35 millimeter grain over the top of it just to make it look like Star Trek."
Right.
That's kind of the difference. Like me in my garage, I wouldn't think of that.
It's a great homage to detail and saying, hey, and it's not so much hey, we did it right over anybody else. In a lot of cases, it's also, you have the ability to do that. You have the equipment to do that. You have, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying. And in many cases, you have the talent to do that. So like a Tim Russ can put together Of Gods and Men and Renegades and get Rest in Love, Nichelle Nichols.
Oh, yeah.
And JG and Garrett and a lot of people who were in Trek today, you know what I mean? So it's like you have more of a resource in terms of being able to literally pick from a crop of actors that you've seen either in Star Trek or in the case of like Star Trek Renegades. Man, we had franchises from all over, from Star Trek to Adrian Wilkinson, who was in Star Wars and Xena, to Edward Furlong, who was in Terminator, to Sean Young, who was in Blade Runner. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And then, all the people who were in Star Trek, from Tim to Ricardo, to, so it's like, it's being able to have that. So, in a way, that's where I look at where the separation comes in. It does not diss anyone else who's done stuff, because again, at the end of the day, we're all doing this because of the love of it all. And I believe a lot of Star Trek wouldn't be around if it wasn't for what the fans have done.
No, I mean, you look at just the simplest things. Fan writing and even Kirk/Spock gay sex fiction of the 1970s. But that's what was out there being created new, and that's what kept Trek going until 76 when they decided to make a new movie.
Yeah.
It's that thing. It's like the fans' passion is always what keeps it floating. So, it used to be writing. Well, now filmmaking was a little more accessible, especially in the early 2000s.
Right.
Where you suddenly didn't need $10,000 in film to make a 15-minute shot.
And now literally everybody has the ability to make some form of a film.
Yeah.
Something.
I'm going to springboard from that. Now let's talk about legacy casting in this show and legacy characters.
Yeah.
Was there, obviously we all thought Pike and number one and Spock, who I was afraid of seeing, was fantastic. Was there anybody, when you found out that character was cast for Strange New Worlds, you kind of went like, ooh, I don't know?
Trying to go down the list in my head real quick in terms of who was on. I was not so much, ooh, I don't know, but I was very curious what they were going to do with Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very curious as to how they were going to, similarly to Chapel, flesh out a character that we knew very little about.
Oh, sure.
With Mbenga, whom I loved in the original series, but again, just like Chapel, we didn't get a lot of them.
No, Chapel was actually a poorly served character in a lot of ways on the original Star Trek.
Yeah, she was just kind of there because Gene Roddenberry was, his.
Well, look, I understand how that happened.
Yeah.
Hey guys, those two girls I'm sleeping with. I need to get them jobs.
Yeah. So they don't sue me, but CBS pays them because
they're
putting the pressure on me.
But because her character was like, "Oh, I'm in love with you, Mr. Spock." That was like every week that she was on,
right?
Except that one time with Roger Kirby or what, I can't think.
Corby,
of Corby, yeah.
That's one of the questions now. They're like, "When's Corby showing up? Is there going to be a thing?"
Yeah. Well, they've done a good job paying attention to some of the stuff you thought they didn't.
I agree. They are nailing it with the Spock Chapel situation. They're nailing it with Spock and T'Pring. We're getting a full fleshed out Dr. Mbenga and what's going on with him and his life. We now know he has a daughter. It's like all these things that are nicely fleshed out. And then there's Uhura, it's just like, and it all, to me, makes sense what they're doing and how they're doing it in the general sense. I know I kind of went off the rails in terms of the original question, but I just feel like, just going back to Mbenga, I wasn't so much like, ooh, but I was just like, I wonder how they're going to flesh this one out. I wonder how they're going. And then again with Chapel, we knew nothing about Chapel. So curious, it's seriously going to be an opportunity to really know who this woman is. And then there's number one.
Yeah.
Whom, for 50 plus years of Star Trek, in the back of my mind, I always thought she might have been a Betazoid.
Oh, I never came across that one. Okay.
Yeah, that was just always, for whatever reason, my theory. I always thought, I wonder if she's Beta's wife. Because we don't know what the hell she is.
No, he didn't know anything about her.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, oh, okay, and now we know, and all that. So yeah, it was interesting. I don't know about Chen Riley, though. That's an interesting choice.
Well, and I'm kind of thinking that's not really her name.
Oh, you think it's... Oh, well, considering what we know now.
Yeah, with what we know now, I'm thinking that was just... That was one of those things. There's also this thing that they do... I don't know, they do this thing on sci-fi shows sometimes where something's supposed to be 400 years in the future.
Right.
And somebody will go, well, you gave a white guy the last name Singh. And I'm like, okay, I know 2 Sikhs with the last name Singh who are English, white English people who grew up in India. You know, the races blend and mix and things change. And, my last name goes from being a French last name to an American last name, missing about 9 letters in 14 years. We got to change and adapt. That's why I loved in the Equality of Mercy that they took Hansen and made him Hansen al-Salam. So they gave him the same Danish first name, but then they gave him an Arabic last name.
Oh, okay.
I love that they did that because they just kind of blended some different names together and it works just fine.
I didn't even notice that. I did not notice that.
Yeah. But yeah, Una Chen Riley, I'm thinking Una probably has something to do with her name, Una being Latin for number 1. Mm-hmm. Now, Chen Riley, I think, might just be a kayfabe name that she took, though.
I wonder, this is just a thought, I wonder if, the writers were like, hey, let's name her Chen Riley, let's see how it's, and let's keep the secret, as long as, I guess I think in episode 2, then they let us know what was going on with her 3 or something like that.
Yeah, well, see, because I was expecting that Lan Noonien Singh, I was expecting that it was going to turn out her colony ship that her family was on was actually a sleeper ship with eugenics escapees. So when they reversed that and they made number 1 the genetic experiment person,
right.
I was like, oh, okay, so they're not going to do it with her, and they kind of blindfolded me accidentally. They didn't realize they were fooling me with that one.
Now, I don't think anyone saw that coming out of left field, but I mean, we're clearly going to get some explanation, hopefully in season 2. But then I forgot about Laan. I don't know how I could, but then there's that. It's just like, she is a Noonien Singh.
Yes.
And, I've also read in the message boards, oh, well, Spock never mentioned it, when he came on board in the original series. Da, 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 da. All right. For whatever reason, that wasn't touched on. Well, we know why it wasn't touched on in the original series, because these characters didn't exist before.
Right.
Laan didn't. But it's going to be interesting to see if they do touch on it. If they do, obviously we need to know what her backstory is. I mean, we're getting flashes of it, it being fleshed out some with the Gorn. But everyone wants to know when mentions of Khan is going to happen. Or are they going to, is she going to, just talk to number 1 about it and swear her to secrecy, and that's how Spock doesn't know?
No, something like that could very much happen, because look at the end of season 2 of Discovery. You had all the nail biters and pearl clutchers. Oh, that spore drive never existed, and Spock never had a sister.
Yeah.
And then, okay, guys, 4 sentences in the last episode of the season just took care of every one of your arguments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
We don't know what they're doing yet. They're creative people. Let them have their time to tell their story.
Yeah, it was classified. It's classified. It's classified. But I do feel like they will touch more on it, and they'll flesh it out. Well, we'll get something. I don't think they're going to leave us hanging. I mean, Star Trek has left us hanging in a few things in general.
Oh, sure.
But in general, it's just like legacy stuff. You almost have no choice but to explain it. I mean, look, it took almost 20 years before we figured out why Klingons have ridges on their head as opposed to in the original series when they didn't.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get another explanation as to why they look the way they do in Disco, and why 10 years later, basically in the original series, we get them back to the
swarthy Russians.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. You know
We'll see.
what's funny is I've finally decided, you know what, if things look different between Discovery and Strange New Worlds, I'm just going to chalk that up to being on different shows. You know, I'm going to be quite fine. Because you know what, the Klingons have changed so much in our lifetime.
Right.
Because, you know, like they were these swarthy Russian, Southeast Asian-y looking kind of dudes who were, who were kind of cowardly in a way, but they were more like sneak up and slit your throat guys. While the Romulans were these like secretive but highly honorable. Yeah. And then all of a sudden Star Trek 3 comes out and that's been completely swapped. They have changed their personalities for each other, you know.
I mean, I would have loved to have been in the writer's room when they were like, okay, guys, Klingons. We need to take what we know and make them the badasses of the galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
Just the bad boys, you know, the biker gang that whenever they come to town, people are like, oh, God, these Klingons are here.
But see, for me, you could just go, you know what? There's 9 different races in the Klingon Empire. And I'm going to be like, cool. Okay. That's all, you know, I'm good.
That's always been my argument. I'm like, look, Kronos is a planet. It's not a city block. It's not a town. We look different on planet Earth, you know? So it's like, I mean, yes, we got the story of what happened and why the ridges changed, but who's to say that Klingons don't look different? Who's to say that the Discovery Klingons, like, I love what they did with Picard, where with the Romulans, they're like, he's a Southerner. So I was like,
you hard-headed Southerners.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I was like, oh my God. That was funny. That was funny. Going back to what you were saying, I feel like that could have been like another FU to, like, you know, people who want to complain about, you know, wow, why do the Romulans look like this? Or why do the Klingons in Discovery look like that? It's like, well, the Romulans, you got Northern Romulans and Southern Romulans, and they have different looks as a result of it. Why can't Klingons? Why can't Klingons have different looks depending on either where they're from or whatever? You know, it's like, and then there's just the idea of, guys, chill. Nobody was really pitching a fit, at least publicly, when Motion Picture came out, and all of a sudden the Klingons looked nothing like what we knew of 3 seasons of the original series.
Oh yeah, you know, I remember like I was first or second grade when that came out, and I remember asking my dad like, those are Klingons. He's like, yes, those are Klingons now. Just let it go. Just
Just enjoy Star Trek, son.
Yeah, just watch the movie. Be glad it's out. You know,
right? I'm sure within a couple of years they'll explain it.
Yeah.
But you saw more, and like you said with 3, you saw these badass Klingons, and people were like, "I am here for it."
Oh yeah,
let's go.
Well, you had Dan from Night Court and Reverend Jim as Klingons.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was good stuff. You know,
I mean, if you're gonna have the first person representing a badass race, you got to get Doc Brown.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, maybe I'm showing my age by going with Reverend Jim there, but, you know.
No. I know who he is, and I know who you're talking about. And, I mean, you know, Christopher Lloyd's a brilliant actor, just because. So it almost makes sense that he would have been on the short list and, of course, eventually cast. So.
Oh, yeah. Did you see that movie he did called, he wasn't the star in it, but he was like the second banana, called I'm Not a Serial Killer?
I never did. No.
There's a little kid whose parents are convinced he's going to grow up to be a serial killer, but then there's also a serial killer in their neighborhood played by Christopher Lloyd. Oh man, it's really good.
When did that come out?
4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you should be able to find it somewhere, probably free streaming somewhere. Yeah.
I'm Not a Serial Killer. Okay. All right. Well, I love anything that Christopher Lloyd does.
No, he was great. You know, he's one of those guys that you don't expect him to be like John Lithgow. Until you see him play a villain, you don't expect him to be really good villains, and then you're like, oh, wow.
Oh, my God. When John Lithgow, speaking of him, played Winston Churchill in The Crown, I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen The Crown?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
If you watch any season of The Crown, I think it might be season 2. I could be wrong. You might have to Google it. But you need to see The Crown with John Lithgow playing Winston Churchill, a masterclass.
Okay, I'll have to.
He is. I mean, but that's going to where you were talking about. He's an amazing actor. I mean, Third Rock from the Sun, he's yucking it up, on camera. And now he's playing like the former prime minister, and it's just like, and even now, I don't know if you watched the other show, the Old Man. He's on that show. I mean, he's just brilliant.
I haven't seen that either.
Oh yeah,
The Crown. That's Jenna Coleman's in that one, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'll find out. I'll check that out. We don't need to get that far off topic.
I think she might be. I think you might be right on that. Yeah. But yeah, it's great, man. You're gonna
I'll check it out because you know what I just did. I'm looking for stuff to watch, and I think I actually watched everything on YouTube finally.
Nice,
dude. Tubi TV has every episode of Ultraman made from 1966 to 2019.
Oh damn.
And I went back and watched the stuff that was out when I was a kid, and then I've been kind of slowly letting the rest creep up as I go. But it's so nostalgic just to go back and watch the stuff I used to watch when I was 5,
You know what I'm trying to find? I'm trying to find Battle of the Planets. Remember that?
Yeah, that's on Tubi as well.
Is it?
The Roger Corman movie, right?
No.
Oh.
Battle of the Planets, G-Force.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, the anime cartoon. So overseas it's called G-Force, but here in America it was called Battle of the Planets, and it had like five kids or teenagers. It's anime, And
it was a Space Ninja Gotcha Man or something was the name of it.
They wore like these outfits that they all resembled birds, different types of birds, and
I remember it exactly because it came on at the same time as like. There was Channel 40 or somebody used to play it. It was like
the after school. It was one of the after school things that they do on.
Yeah, because when we got out of school, you hauled ass to get home to see Ultraman.
Batman, Battle of the Planets. I think they
Star Blazers. I think was on.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Flintstones. I think they threw them in there in the mix. Star Trek was played around that time too.
About 5:00, I think, is when Star Trek started. And like I told Chris one time, I was like, "Dude, when I was a kid, you got like 9 hours a day of Star Trek." You just had to know what channel to be on at what time,
Exactly. That's the truth. Yeah.
Let's see here.
That's great.
Hulu and Anime Network have Battle of the Planets.
Hulu and who? Anime Network?
The Anime Network. Yeah, I don't know that channel, so.
That might be Pluto TV. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Pluto's got a lot of good stuff on there now.
Oh my God, yeah. But if they have... Jeremy.
That's a rabbit hole to fall down.
That was my jam, man. I Battle of the Planets was that. Couldn't tell me nothing.
Yeah, when you first said that, I was obviously thinking of Battle Beyond the Stars.
Okay.
Yeah, Roger Corman's Space Seven Samurai movie.
Yeah. This is anime when anime was cool, but it wasn't like hitting America. Like, I mean, you had a lot of Japanese programming, of course, coming through, like Ultraman and Johnny Sacco and the Flying Robot, and of course, Godzilla and all of those guys. But and that's not anime, but it's Japanese content coming into the States.
Well, I remember Channel 2 had that creature feature on Friday nights, right?
Right.
And every couple of months, you got a hella scary Japanese movie on there.
I did creature features. I was a guest on it.
Get out!
I was a guest on the new creature feature in the latter half of 2020. It was like literally my first major outing since lockdown.
That is really, I had no idea. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because I found out about it through John Probst. I was his table neighbor at Silicon Valley Comic-Con.
Okay.
In 2019, he and I had a table side by side. And Lori, his wife, she's a publicist, and she basically books John at different cons, and she has a few other clients. And so, she knew I'm from the Bay Area and everything, and so we got to talking and stuff like that. And so she hits me up one day, and she's like, "Rico, did you watch Creature Features growing up?" And I was like, who didn't watch Creature Features growing up? Hell yeah, I used to love that show, And so she was like, well, I know the people who are doing the current Creature Features. And she was like, I can get you on the show if you want to do it. And I was like, yeah, I want on that show so bad. because even though it's not the original, they're still doing the same thing of, you got the guest host and, they're talking and saying whatever. And then, they show the movie, and then between the movie, they'll come back and whoever the guest is, and they'll do an interview and all that. And so, I'm sitting up here like, she sets it up. They bring me in. It's 3 hosts, Vincent, Mr. Livingston, and Tangela. And they're in like this, the setting is like a haunted house. It was great, man. I went and I interviewed, and they have, not Roger Corman, but Stanley.
Oh, yeah.
John Stanley, his chair. And sometimes he'll come in and guest host sometimes.
Oh,
be
wow.
A guest host. He's closely tied to the original. And it's great. It was great. It was a great
The original Creature feature was sponsored by a furniture store, right?
Was it?
I think because I think they were selling Lazy Boy chairs or something. Because remember that Bob Wilkins would sit there and smoke a cigar and didn't talk about the movie, but he's always in like that super plush chair.
Wait, who was the last host? It was it Bob Wilkins or John Stanley?
I was thinking it was Bob Wilkins, but that may just be the last one I saw.
But wait, who passed? One of them passed away.
Bob Wilkins died in 2009.
Then it was okay. So it was I think John Stanley. Yeah, he would come through, and he would like guest host, and and they have his chair. He had a yellow rocking chair, and they have it. They have it there.
That's cool.
I think he like donated, well, not donated, but probably lent it. And they don't use it. They like actually have it like behind a velvet rope. And so it was great. It was great. I was on Creature Features. I was like,
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
cool, man.
That is really cool.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, as I brought it up, that was the last sentence I expected to hear.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was great because, we talked about, Star Trek and I did the Orville, so we talked about that. And Vincent spoke on like some of the guests from Trek who was on Creature Features. Shatner was on it. I think he said Nimoy was on it.
Oh wow! Well, yeah, I can see that back in the 70s.
Yeah. Because we didn't have like a gazillion sci-fi stuff that we do. I mean, we did have a lot, but not like we do today.
Yeah. Well, because back then, like conventions were like barely a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And comic books were still all the rage. And if you had the opportunity to get something live action, it wasn't like it is today.
Yeah, exactly.
It was more of a treat as opposed to next year, the new Avengers coming out or the new, whatever,
Oh, yeah, it's gotten so out of hand, I can't even keep track of it anymore.
I know, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But you know what? I love it. I love the fact that we are at the point with the technology to be able to pull it off in a way that does not come off cheesy, that does actually look like, hey, this is the real life that would technically be if this stuff existed. And I say that with respect to, like, of course, Lou Ferrigno's Incredible Hulk.
Oh, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Christopher Reeve on a wire. That was awesome. You know what I mean? But, and that limited technology and just, that was awesome. It was awesome that we had what we had. I mean, look at Ray Harryhausen. That was our CGI back then.
Yep.
And we loved it. And we love it to this day. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Look, practical effects are hard to beat, man. But computers are getting better, so I have to give them credit.
They are. And, you gotta get, just like the feature.
Hey, so what episode of the Orville were you in?
So I was in episode 3, about a girl. It was one of the most controversial ones.
Oh, you know what? Okay, I remember that one now. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to my ex-wife, I was like, I think that was Rico.
Yeah. Well, you would only notice it because of my mouth structure, because of course I was a Mocklin, so I was covered.
Well, yeah, but you got to remember the first time I saw you, the picture, the first time we met, one of the pictures you were selling was you in a piece of prosthetic with only your mouth showing.
That was what I did. Well, actually, that's when I did Star Trek Renegades, and my mouth was actually covered.
Really? It looked like it was showing. Okay, hold on here. I'm thinking of something different then.
I had a Planet of the Apes type mouth in terms of like when I talk, it just kind of went above.
Oh, hold on. No, you know what it was? It was your smile. That's what it was. That's what it was. No, because I remember when we first met you, I remember me and my ex-wife were cracking jokes about your smile the next day. They're just like, you got to like put your shades on when that guy walks in the room kind of stuff,
This man is like, who needs a light bill?
Exactly. It's like, it's like Eric Estrada. We could lose him, and we've got to fill in now. You know?
Oh yeah. He's a smiler for sure.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, man.
Hey, so I'm going to hit a couple things here because I know I'm kind of tying up your whole evening, but I want to wrap up some thoughts that I have and I want to hit.
I'm good, man. I'm loving this. But
oh, cool. Okay, yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about diversity in the crew going into this. And we can or cannot talk about how some people seem to freak out when Admiral April decided they decided to cast a black man because God forbid you should give a black man an acting job.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Especially today.
Never been seen in anything. Oh no, that's not true. I forgot he was in the animated series, and I forgot what a cornerstone of Star Trek the animated series is.
Well, also because the animated series has never really truly been considered canon.
No.
Until recently, when they did touch on a couple of things that they did bring from there, just like they brought some stuff from the books, which was never canon. But I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No. It's you were going in the right direction because, like, I know people that have considered some things in the animated series to be canon, but it's never like, oh, he has to look just like he did as an original character in the animated series. Because now you got to have a cartoon character.
Well, I would say one of the reasons why they probably decided to take that license is because of the fact that the animated series throughout history has never really been considered canon in itself. But they did lift some things from the animated series. If anyone's seen Lower Decks, that episode where they go through that whole museum and you see a giant Spock skeleton.
Yes.
Okay, well, we already know where that comes from. That came from the animated
Infinite
series.
Vulcan, yeah.
Yes. And let's not even talk about the Spock helmet that was only sold as a helmet, but it was never on the show until Lower Decks. Which case, Lower Decks just made...
Rico, you are wrong, my friend.
What?
Are you talking about the white one with the red siren?
Yes.
I had that helmet when I was 8.
Right, but have you ever seen it on the shows?
Oh, on the shows. No. I thought you said on the shelf, like it was never for sale.
Oh, no. I wish I had one of those.
Yeah, I had one of those bad boys.
Okay. Well, no, it's canon now because on Lower Decks, it's shown.
That's pretty awesome.
It's shown.
Dude, Lower Decks is like this thing. I love Lower Decks. And it is, you can tell they love Star Trek so much.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, you look at it, you go, I can't take you as fully accurate Star Trek. You know,
well, it's just so out there. You can't help but wonder how they're getting away with, like, in the writer's room, what's pitched. How are they saying yes to it?
Dude, can you imagine the stuff they're saying no to?
Oh, dude, I know. Now that would be a great interview because it's like they're literally throwing everything against the wall. And what was so beautiful about it is the humor and the legacy characters that they bring back, the references, the things that they speak about when they reference this or that. It brings certain things that we've only seen once, like on Next Generation, back 20, 30 years later.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all canon, man. It's all canon. The recent episode of Lower Decks have you seen it?
What was the most recent one?
The new season of Lower Decks just came out.
Okay, so there's only been the 2 episodes of this new season. Yeah. Okay, I'm caught up.
Okay, so in the first episode of the 3rd season of the new season, they mentioned what happened to the captain and how she got exonerated, and part of it is because of Captain Morgan Bateson.
Yes, I was just Captain Kelsey Grammer. The fact that they dropped him in there was just as a throwaway line, a just throwaway line. They dropped him in there.
Well, no. It was him being a part of like the ops mission, like the away mission to figure out exactly what happened. Like he was the captain. He captained the mission. Right.
But it wasn't like they didn't do like a big thing around it. They just said Captain so and so, and if you're giant Trek nerds like us, you're like, oh yeah,
Morgan Bateson. But they did kind of like that montage where they showed an animated Bateson. And I think they did like a flashback to when Jellicoe took command of the Enterprise, and remember how they had Picard and Beverly and Worf, and they were in all black, and they were like sneaking around. And, around us. So they kind of did a version of that, but it was just great that they referenced Bateson, because you'd never heard of Bateson until that episode. And now we know what happened to Bateson since, what he's been up to. So I don't know, man. It was great what they did with that and how they just brought it in. But going back to legacy characters.
Yeah.
Because we kind of flew off the handle.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's all good. Hey, what are you going to do? What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Well, actually, I wanted to kind of like swing into like the diversity in the crew that they have now. And that includes with legacy characters, because they did replace Dr. Boyce with Dr. Mbenga.
Right.
And they kind of did some things in there where, we did get Uhura on there. So we started to get a more look, you love the Cage. I love the Cage. You turn that on and you see nothing but white men.
Yeah.
They kind of like did something where like, okay, we'll kind of scurry about from that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always feel like the world should be reflected the way the world is. And when you have the future, hopefully you'll see a world that has progressed even further, which was Gene Roddenberry's original vision. When you see a black woman on the bridge, when you see an Asian man on the bridge, when you see a Russian on the bridge, which back in the day was supposed to signify, I know we're going through some Russian stuff right now, but in the future, we've gotten past that.
Yeah.
When you see the person who created the ultimate computer is a black man, when you see, you know what I mean? They were very diverse back in the 60s in a way that you did not really notice. And of course, the kiss.
Well, I was going to say, for the 60s, it was super diverse.
Yeah.
But when you go back and you watch it today, there's like even later, like in the motion picture, remember there's that pullback shot of them in the shuttle bay where the Captain or Admiral Kirk is addressing everybody.
Right.
And all the Native Americans have long hair and feathers and beads.
Right.
And I'm like, guys, this is oof.
Yeah. It said, okay, we've gotten certain places. We still got a ways to go.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm all cool with, Native Americans keeping as much of their culture. My great-grandmother was Native American, raised on a white orphanage where they used to scrub their mouths with wire brushes for speaking their native languages. I know a handful of actors out of Canada who are Cree Indians. I've seen what modern Indian life is, and they may keep a few ornaments around that are more traditional, but for the most part, they wear Levi's and cowboy boots.
Right. And if you're going stereotypical, it's fine to a point, but if it's just blatantly obvious, it's almost like, okay, like you were saying, jeans and t-shirts, and sometimes you can't even tell.
Especially this far out. But when they do that shot, now, when I was a little kid, I thought it was cool, but when I was older and I saw that and I realized what I was looking at, I was like, oh, come on. Yeah. But, the other thing in there is you've got, why did I forget her name? Who's the little Spitfire on the piloting line there? Melissa.
Who plays Ortegas?
Ortegas, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got this what seems like a butch little chick, but she doesn't really do anything that butch besides her like attitude. We haven't seen them like try to say that she's any one sexuality or different in any way from anything.
Right.
And they've kind of, at least for a couple of the characters, laid like a baseline bisexuality down where you just don't flinch if you find out Chapel's been on a date with a girl and a guy,
Right.
So they've kind of very like laid this like very smooth, just kind of cool, like, okay, where everybody's in here, we've got black people, we've got aliens, we've got,
Yeah, listen, I am here for it. I love it. I feel like it's doing what it should be doing in terms of what representation and how it's supposed to matter. Representation matters. I say
Absolutely.
This, I say it in every interview. I will always say it until I can't say it no more, and then I'll be writing it down. Representation matters. When I grew up, like Sidney Poitier, rest in peace, is and was a personal hero of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at how Mr. Poitier's life and career was very influential to myself, and then years later, I look at how when Black Panther came out, and you see little black kids running around acting like T'Challa, acting like the Black Panther, it's a beautiful thing because it's doing what it was supposed to do. The movie it showed a representation. It showed me. It showed my skin color. It showed, even if I'm lighter than, say, like Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, or darker, it showed a brown person. It showed a black man who was a king and from a country that was not touched by the outside world or affected by the outside world. So representation is everything when it comes to something, especially like Star Trek. So when you see an Ortega's character, when you see a Nurse Chapel character, and we're touching on her life, who she dated, who she likes in terms of men and women, a black doctor, an African doctor, Uhura, African.
Yeah, they often forget that about her when they bring that up, that she's Kenyan, I believe, right?
I was it Kenyan or? Nigeria?
Well, in the original show, it was the United States of Africa in the original show.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but she spoke Swahili.
Yes.
You remember? Yeah. And one of the things, I want to say this too. One of the things this is where I had to tell people is go sit down and shut the F up. Yeah. Because when Uhura was announced and they showed who was playing it, the first thing that a lot of white people were saying were they were talking about her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And the hair issue bothered me in terms of what people were saying because, first of all, they were saying her hair looked butch, but then they were saying her hair looked nappy.
Okay, nothing about that chick looks butch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And her hair is not nappy. And I feel like no one who is not black has a right to critique black hair because our hair is unlike anybody else's hair on the planet. And I feel like say something like that is not only very extremely disrespectful, it's racist in many forms, and it's very insensitive to the fact that you're just going by what an older Uhura looked like. This is a young cadet. When we were younger, our hair was different it was different when we were kids. It was different when we were in our early 20s. It was different when we were in our early 30s. So why wouldn't Uhura have, and she's African. A lot of African women have low haircuts. A lot of black women today have low haircuts. Low like that. Maybe a little bit bigger in some cases, but low haircut. A lot of black women, a lot of people don't know this, a lot of black women, when they get older, decide they're done with the straightening, the chemicals, all the things that they do to maintain what white society deems the good
normal
type of hair.
Normal hair,
Yeah, the normal hair. So a lot of black women either cut it off or just cut it low and just, grow their hair out naturally. Michelle Hurd from Star Trek Picard is very, very outspoken about that in terms of her hair and how her hair is viewed when she does projects, especially Picard. I remember in an interview, she mentioned that she's glad that there were no issues in terms of her having her hair the way it is because she's got long, beautiful, just curly ass hair.
Yeah.
And it would be easy for someone to be like, we got to do something with this. Well, why? Because it looks unkept. It looks this, that, and the other. It's like, but this is why the Crown Act was invented, or not invented, but was created. And for people who don't know what the Crown Act is, it's basically saying you cannot discriminate based on a person of color's hair, especially a black person's hair, because of the fact that our hair is different from other hair. And just because our hair may not fit the quality of the idea of what you think or of what you think hair should look like, it doesn't make our hair any less professional, any less kept, any less anything. And also it's very cultural in a lot of ways and respects.
Yeah.
So it's important that people understand that and really respect that, because at the end of the day, Uhura, to me, looks perfect the way she is. If she wants to grow her hair out, cool. But I think what she has is right on the money.
And it's up to her to go with it or not. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nichelle Nichols actually wanted to wear her hair in an afro in the original series, and then they wouldn't let her. But then when the motion picture came out, she did it,
Yeah.
but she really wanted to wear her hair natural. So, in a way, that's even an homage, even though, maybe Celia, who plays Aurora, didn't know that or didn't do it because of that. But, hey, that's her hair. So
yeah, that's fine. I had really curly hair before I went bald.
Did you?
And I actually chemically straightened it one time when I was like 19.
We all chemically straightened our hair back in the day, man. I had the Jerry curl for
Did
life.
you? Okay. So I actually burnt my scalp with the shit that I used.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I kept it for about 2 months, and I was like, no, it's all burned. It's got to go.
Yeah. So those chemicals were harsh, man.
That's why me, white guy with just curly white hair, and then I'm thinking about how black people feel like they have to do this. And I was just like, wow, because that is some caustic, nasty stuff.
Man, Jerry curls. There are pictures out there.
I gotta find some of these now.
There are pictures out there. But at the time it was like, hey, Michael Jackson or Prince, who are you a fan of? And I was always a bigger Michael Jackson fan. Loved Prince, but I was all about Mike. So I loved his Thriller and Bad, hairstyle. That's when he conked it.
Oh, yeah.
And and he had the Michael Jackson look. And man, I was all over that. I had to have it. And you had two types of curls back then. You had what's called the kitchen curl, which is basically you buy the box at, your local Walgreens, and you do it yourself in the kitchen. And then there was the professional curl where you go to the salon and have them do it. But, we were poor back then, so I couldn't afford that. Yeah, so I get the curl in a box. It was like, $5? Go in there and have my mom help me do it. And it looks great the first time out. But then, I don't know nothing about, maintaining curls and all that kind of stuff. I had the curl activator, the spray and all that. But, and, I maintained it okay. But, oh, man, yeah. When you think about the chemicals you put... we all do it. Look, women do it. Do it. They do it all, throughout the course. A lot of women do it throughout the course of their lives. So,
well, that's that's kind of the thing. It's like when I was young, I hated having curly hair. I'd love to have it again.
Yeah, you had some luscious locks there, man.
Yeah, I've been bald since my mid-20s now, and
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I went to a lady friend's wedding, right? And a couple weeks later, ran into her back when cameras used film. Way back then,
Yeah.
And she goes, hey, I got some pictures I wanted to give you, blah, blah, blah. And she hands me this bunch, and I'm kind of looking through them, and I'm thinking, well, who is this bald guy wearing my jacket? And that was the first time I'd ever seen the back of my head.
Oh, God.
And that's when I started shaving my head. I was like, oh, okay. Now that I know that's there, it's gone.
A lot of guys do that now, man. It's just like, as soon as you start seeing signs of it, bald head.
Yep.
And the ladies love it, so there.
Look, Jean-Luc made it okay to be bald.
Jean-Luc made it okay to be bald, and then, if we're going to really take it back, Kojak.
Yeah, Who Loves You, Baby? Yeah, Kojak. Yeah, Kojak did his part.
Yeah.
And, I guess we should throw Cisco and /Hawk on there as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Now Cisco Hawk made it sexy in a whole different way because he started off as Hawk, and I remember the ladies were even then were like, "Ooh, Hawk!" And then of course he went on board as Cisco, and then he went back to the Hawk look, and then it was like it was on.
Oh yeah. And I kind of revolutionized things right there for Starfleet captains. You can look like a badass.
Right. Exactly. Which I always thought it was interesting, because he clearly wanted to get away from the Hawk look, and I'm sure the studios was even do that too, but it just didn't make him look as hard ass or badass as the Hawk look. So somehow or another, somewhere down the line, I'm sure somebody was like, okay, we're about to dive into some really deep territory here. We need a badass looking captain. Hey, Avery, what do you think about going back to the Hawk? What I mean? So
his voice did a big part of the authoritarian sound, the authoritative. But he did kind of look like a school teacher a little bit.
Yeah, that was the thing. It didn't work like it could have with Avery, with respect. But yeah, it just didn't. But you know what? He did it, man. He did it regardless. But yeah, the Hawk look was the one.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the one that pulled it across the finish line, I think.
Yeah. But I'm just getting back to the whole thing of legacy and diversity. I'm always going to be, of course, a fan of diversity, and I am here for the things that are being done in order to make that just normal as opposed to what once was. I have a major issue with how people have taken the term woke and turned it negative.
So the first time I ever heard the word woke was somebody was talking about Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
And then I never looked it up, never did anything with it. Anybody that knows me knows I'm fairly progressive and pretty liberal across the board. And I started hearing the word used, and I'm like, what does that mean exactly? So I went and looked it up. And it means to be aware of, racial inequalities. Okay. That's all it means, just to be aware of racial inequalities.
Yeah, just to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and I discovered what people use it for is to mean anything I don't like.
Yeah.
You're woke. Because, what's a woke general? This is a term I've heard a bunch here lately. Woke generals in the Army. So are we talking about generals that understand there's racial inequality? No. You're just trying to use a buzzword to say something that doesn't really mean anything.
It's turned it upside down. It's dumb how people have taken it and turned it into a negative, because it really does just mean knowing what is happening within your culture, within the world, within just you as a whole. There is a saying, I wish I could find it, that Dr. King said, and it had to do with somebody commenting on Dr. King and all that Dr. King did, and basically saying that what he was doing was dividing the country. And his response, and I'm paraphrasing here, his response was basically, no, it's not doing any of that. It's calling out what's actually going on in the country. And the people who feel this way are the people who are bothered by the fact that they're being called out.
Yeah.
I look at that in terms of the wokeness, because, the word woke is like, you're all of a sudden having all these issues with this, that, and the other, but it's like Hollywood and just culture itself, you're looking at righting wrongs that should have never happened in the first place. So when you see what you would consider woke, it's just, again, showing representation. It's also saying, hey, this particular racial group can represent this as well. Yeah, it may take away from what we grew up watching or reading and stuff like that, but is it really irritating your demons that much to the point where it's got to be so, disturbing to you like that? Are you not looking and understanding or wanting to understand why things are happening, why wrongs are being righted now in America?
Or addressed at the very least.
Addressed, yeah.
Yeah.
But, when Miles Morales, Spider-Man, was created, Stan Lee said he was all on board for it, because why not? Why can't Spider-Man represent everybody in a way where if a little black child and a little Latino child sees him, they relate to it?
Yeah.
Why can't the Spider-Man universe be expanded? So, Stan Lee was always on board with some of the changes that were.
I forget how you and I get off topic sometimes, but they were talking about Michael B. Jordan playing Superman. Yeah. And when I first heard that, I was like, black Superman. Yeah. And then I realized, dude, there would be nothing to show a more inclusive, adoptive nature than the Kents raising a black kid in a rural community in Kansas.
It could happen.
Yeah, well, when you put that together with everything else that Superman means,
right? And
now all of a sudden I kind of want to see a racially diverse Superman.
Well, at one point they were thinking of Denzel, and that was that was way back in the day.
Oh wow!
Hey, I think he was on the short list before Henry Cavill.
Wow!
Got it. Yeah.
I don't know if chicks should be throwing the screen, their panties at the screen in Superman, though.
Well, I don't know.
Denzel kind of has that effect,
Well, girls love Henry too, man.
Well, this is true. This is true.
That Harry Superman chest. They were here for it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, like a younger Denzel, oh man, women were all over.
Yeah, no, it's I used to see some almost profane things at the movie theater because he was on screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, listen, this is the world that we are in, and I'm here for the recognition of characters that should be given the credit that they deserve. And even if they're changed, guess what, white people? You're not losing out on anything. You have hundreds of years of you being showcased. And in Hollywood, you guys are still topping the list of characters who are more in the forefront, who are more represented, who are more out there. When you think of classic Hollywood, the only black person you're probably going to be thinking of is Sidney Poitier. Maybe Louis Armstrong, if you want to throw him in terms of when he did act. But really, Sidney Poitier, Diane Carroll, Dorothy Dandridge. But when you think of classic Hollywood, with respect, you think of none but white people in terms of Marilyn Monroe, Humphrey Bogart, blah, 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 James Cagney, all that. So when you think of amazing dancers of classic Hollywood, you don't think of the Nicholas brothers. You think of, respectfully, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, and they were brilliant. But there was a reason why you didn't have the equality back then that should have been there. There's a reason why whenever you saw somebody Asian in classic Hollywood, they were the stereotypical type of it.
Hey, look at Mickey Rooney when he played that Chinese character in Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Yeah. Peter Sellers when Charlie Chan, I think he...
Yeah, I think it was...
Yeah.
It wasn't he... There's a different name, but it was Peter Sellers playing Charlie Chan, but it was under a, what do you call it, filed off name,
Yeah. So it's like, and then with the majority of black people on screen, they were, maids, butlers, or just not represented in a positive light and in a respectful light. So,
well, and I think, as we kind of wander on this one, probably 1970s TV is the first time you started to see, black and Latino people, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. Who was that? He's the guy that did like All in the Family, created all those shows.
Oh, Norman Lear.
You go back and you look at his shows, and all those shows, you'd occasionally get, you get a Latino family, like, I can't even think of the show I'm trying to name, but, you have everything from the Jeffersons. Mm-hmm. So you have rich black people living this way. Then you had Good Times, which was like one of my favorites when I was a kid. Because JJ was funnier than hell, but but you really saw a spectrum of how people lived at that point, And it takes a hell of a writer to take a giant mean bigot like Bunker and get you to laugh at him.
Right. Like that was pretty brilliant when you look at that show.
Yeah.
It says so much to society. It does definitely point a mirror at people like Archie Bunker. And it says, look at yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But, as a kid growing up watching these shows and seeing the representation that was there, I looked at the Herb Jefferson Jr.'s who played Boomer on the original Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful to be able to have the opportunity to meet and work with Herb Jefferson Jr. on Star Trek Renegades, and basically to tell him, you were one of the people that I saw. I saw you, and I saw me in you doing what you did on a show that I loved. I loved the original Battlestar, but I saw you and me because you were this older black man with a little fro when I was a kid,
mm-hmm.
And and just representing that, of course, with Michelle as well. And you got all this great representation from so many different aspects. It's a great thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful to see black, white, Asian, Latino doing it. And in many cases, not even mentioning race, but it just being there. And both things, I love the fact that Deep Space Nine, I think, touched on race maybe 3 times, but the underlying premise that was beautiful about it was you had basically, if you take away the sci-fi element, you had a black single father running a corporation.
Yeah.
And touching on black single fathers in a positive light is such a beautiful thing. Sirach Lofton has touched on this many times. We've actually done a couple of interviews together where we've spoken about it. That was a beautiful thing to see. I didn't grow up with a father. my father, rest in peace, he was not there for me growing up. And I knew a lot of black kids who had that. And it's not just black people who don't grow up with fathers. White people who grow up without fathers too. But in a black family, to not have a father growing up, that was a huge, big deal. And, you see a positive representation of that in Star Trek, like they did with Deep Space Nine. Hey, man, that was a beautiful thing to see. Especially considering all the shit he was dealing with, as he was like trying to be a single father, raise this teenage son who's running around with this little Ferengi kid who was like a badass. And we all knew those kids, it's like the one kid who's just influencing and making him do all the bad stuff. Nog represented that badass kid. Now, meanwhile, Cisco's like trying to like deal with Kardashians and all sorts of things. And it's like, but now I got to deal with the fact that Odo's lighting me up because he and Nog keep messing around on the promenade. I loved it, man. I loved it. I was like, yeah, this is great.
I wish there was like a easy Ferengi naming convention because I'd love to see Eddie Haskell turn into a Ferengi name.
He would be a Ferengi.
Yeah. Eddie, yes.
Oh, yeah. But because he was always the shit starter, man.
Yep.
And as soon as like one of the parents came in, how you doing, sir, Mr. Cleaver? Oh, Mrs. Cleaver, I must say that's a lovely brooch you're wearing on it. And I love when they were always just like looking at him like, cut the shit, Eddie.
Yeah. They knew. Yeah. they were onto him.
That was great. That back and forth was classic, man.
Yeah, that was some good stuff. So I'm not going to like break this up real hard or anything, but I do want to kind of get back to Star Trek and kind of some of the stuff we're talking about here.
Sure.
And I wanted to talk specifically about things that happen when you make prequels. And I noticed there's a lot of call forwards and callbacks and constantly going to references. And this kind of takes me out of the story. How does it affect you?
I love the nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if it's done tastefully, if it's done right, I'm here for it. I mean, because as fans, we want, well, especially when you're dealing with prequels. I mean, come on. You almost can't do a prequel without having certain callbacks, certain levels of nostalgia in terms of mentions or legacy character coming into the fray who, would probably be a new casting because, that original character is either too old or they've passed away.
Yeah.
So I'm here for it. I like it. I listen, no one does it better to me than Lower Decks. They're the kings of nostalgia. But like when you think of like Strange New Worlds, it's aboard the Enterprise. We all know what we know in terms of what the Enterprise is about, in terms of how it looks, certain things that are very familiar to us in terms of looks, like the patterns of the bridge, the way the bridge is, the pattern, the way the controls are, different things like that. I'm here for it in all those ways. I think it's cool because it gives us something to talk about along with the episode of the week. It's like, Easter eggs are all the rage now.
Yeah.
And like nobody does Easter eggs better than like, say, Marvel, who, if you're watching a Captain America movie and all of a sudden there's a reference to what happened in Doctor Strange, you've just got a great connection. Or, like what they're doing with She-Hulk, how they're referencing the Incredible Hulk, which at the time wasn't even Marvel. Well, I mean, it's always Marvel, but, MCU.
Yeah, Universal or somebody at the time.
Yeah, Universal. So, but they were referencing stuff that happened. And, of course, Abomination is now is in the show, and so it's cool when that happens. And in Star Trek, I love when they reference certain things that we've known of for like 50 years, especially when you're dealing with like Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. Well, so what did you think of the basically the remake of Balance of Terror?
I thought it was pretty genius, to be honest.
I loved every second of it.
Yeah, it was a what if situation. It took one of the most famous episodes of the series and basically made it a what if, like in Marvel, like a what if this went down like this because Pike, was able to avoid his fate. I thought it was amazing. Only thing I didn't like was the tweaking that they did on the movie jackets.
So I've heard a couple people bring that up as like not being fans of. Was it the shiny sleeves or the sloped off border on the top of the jacket?
It was the shiny sleeve to me. It was it's just that top part that they decided to make shiny as opposed to. I just wanted them to keep it
identical.
Yeah. Look, we've been getting tweaks on uniforms for the longest. Okay, fine. It's not. They haven't destroyed Star Trek, as some people like to say, when something is different. Just personally, I was not a fan of seeing it that way. Yeah. I loved seeing it. I loved seeing those uniforms there. Just like I love when they showed it like during Next Gen. You know how every now and then you see the movie uniforms in Next Gen, like when Picard was younger and all that kind of stuff. I was here for it. But the episode as a whole, man, come on. They did it.
They knocked it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I could see some issues with the Wrath of Khan costume, but at the same time, we're talking about an alternate future where Pike lived and Kirk, who knows what happened to Kirk.
But that's a great point.
Yeah.
Who's to say that in that alternate future, that's what the uniforms look like?
Yeah, exactly. Right. You know what I did notice, and I brought this up once with Chris, but since you're one of those guys who digs into these thoughts like I do, so you notice Spock in the alternate future dies very much the way Spock died in the Wrath of Khan. Okay? Radiation exposure, just torn to shreds. Yeah. So the first time where he would have died doesn't happen because Kirk is there to do balance of terror the way Kirk would have done it instead of the way Pike would have done it.
Yeah.
The second time, Spock actually dies, but Kirk is there to go steal the Enterprise and go back and get him.
Right.
So that was Spock's fate no matter what, but where Kirk was involved, there's a way out. Where Kirk's not involved, there's not.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of a genius little twist on the story.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Spock died the way he did in Wrath of Khan. You're the first person that I've talked to, or even anybody who's even posted anything, who's given that mention in terms of how Spock died in Wrath of Khan. But yeah, that's true. It made sense. I mean, I think that they really touched on a lot of what ifs that it was very needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it.
Oh yeah, and then like when Himmer died, you got a total flash forward to Spock and his attitude in the Wrath of Khan.
Oh yeah. And nobody saw Himmer dying.
No, that came out of nowhere.
Nobody saw that coming, although a lot of people are saying it's possible he will come back.
They're saying the actor will be back. Now, I don't know if that means the actor will be back as Himmer. I just don't know.
Well, there were a few, theories on how Himmer could have potentially survived. He could have been beamed out as he was falling. The snow could have preserved him, which means that they would have frozen the eggs that are in, there's a lot of, and I look at it and I'm like, you know what? There are those possibilities. This is Star Trek. It could be, he could potentially come back in one of those incarnations. But I also like the fact that if maybe he should just stay dead, There's
something to be said for that as well.
Yeah. Like who in Star Trek actually died instead? I mean, a bunch of people did, but like Spock came back to life.
Well, I was just going to say Tasha, but there's even an exception to that.
Right, and they're even hinting that Tasha will return in 3.
Yeah,
but they don't know how.
Let's see here. Who dies and stays dead?
Like big characters.
Well, we never see McCoy die on screen, so you can't use him. You can't use most of the regular crew because you don't see them die.
And you don't know what really happened to them.
Yeah. So they're out.
Like as far as we know, they all died natural causes. Well, Kirk, Kirk died.
Yeah, but then he wrote his own book 4 years later where he was reawakened as a zombie Kirk thing.
Half forward.
Let's see here. Trip in Enterprise.
Trip. There you go.
Only because they killed him in the very last episode.
Right. And they've never revisited Enterprise since. But, in the books, he didn't die and he joined Section 31.
Oh. Ugh.
Yeah, but again, that's the books. Okay. The books don't count unless they decide to.
So we got Kirk and Trip.
Kirk, Trip. Tasha for the most part, even though she came.
Yeah, because you know what, that was time travel shenanigans. That wasn't
right.
Yeah,
right.
She didn't come back to life. They just ended up in a place where she hadn't died.
Oh, you know who died?
Who's that?
And even though it was brilliant how they continued him, the original Harry Kim died. The Harry Kim that took off with Voyager and got stuck in the Alpha Quadrant died. He was sucked out of that airlock, or not the airlock, but when the hull was breached, he was sucked out. But if you remember, they had an alternate Voyager that was going through the same stuff, and then there was a rift. And remember, the Naomi Wildman also died when Harry Kim died, and so that Janeway was able to tell the other Janeway, yeah, we lost Harry Kim, and Samantha Wildman lost her daughter. And so when the other Voyager decided to sacrifice themselves, I think it was the Hirogen that was trying to take them over, they were like, Harry, take the baby and go on the other side.
Oh, okay.
And so he did, which, completed the set. And so that Harry Kim, that Naomi Wildman, though they are basically complete equals of not even clones, but just, different universe, but all the same stuff went down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Minus that one little hiccup. So that's one.
Wow. You know what that reminds me of? Land of the Lost. There was an episode of Land of the Lost where they duped their others, like another parallel version of themselves, to come in so they could get out. So the original family that got stuck in there actually escapes, but they did it by trapping another version of themselves.
I do remember that.
Yeah, David Gerald's a much better writer than he gets credit for a lot of times.
Did David Gerald write Land of the Lost?
I'm pretty sure he created that show or wrote for it. Yeah.
Wait a minute. So is that how the show ended? Because I remember.
No, I think that was just like a middle show. I think that was just like a one that they had just put in there. Because remember, like when we were young, the shows didn't end. You just put them in syndication and they kept playing.
That's true. There was never really a resolve in any of the shows. Oh, that's interesting. So wait, but that was just an episode. And the next episode was like, and this week on Land of the Lost, but it was like a whole different family. But even though it was the same family. Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
The illusion of change more than just change.
Yeah, I got to go back and start watching Land of the Lost again. Oh, man.
That was kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? I mean, in general, do you think that, because you say you think it's too much or you don't really like a lot of the character?
Well, so one of the problems with doing a prequel is we already know what's going to happen 100 years in the future.
Sure.
But the people who are in there don't. And there doesn't necessarily need to be a whole lot of hints. Unless, like you're saying, you want to run up the Easter egg counter, then fine, do it. But me, I get pulled out of stuff a lot when I see too many things,
I live for it, man.
Yeah, but that being said, so far, almost everything they've done in Strange New Worlds, they get right up to the line. Where I'm like, oh, if they go any further with that, I don't know how I'm going to feel. And then they stop right there,
Well, for me, they get me enough to the point where I feel like, because we all know Spock. Whatever happens, Spock is going to survive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. But they get me enough to the point where I'm so invested in the episode. Like my mind doesn't go there in terms of, man, he's going to be fine, even though he's literally about to get blasted out of the sky. Yeah, he's going to be fine. But my mind is just like, oh no, oh Spock, oh shit, okay, cool. Enterprise just saved him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
they beamed him out right in time or whatever. So I'm there for the story, man. And even though we all know what's going to happen, hey, I'm still there for the suspense. I'm still there for all the things that you're supposed to be affected by. But where I do get a little like, ooh, what's going to happen is like, we don't know what happens to La'an. We don't know what happens to, we don't know what happens to Ortega's. We don't even really know what happens to number one.
No, number one could stay in the pen from here on out. We wouldn't have known that,
Right, exactly. We don't know what happened. So there's, that to me is where they killed off Hemmer. So unless they're going Game of Thrones, who knows who could be next and when?
Yeah.
You know? Who knows? I mean, they win a little Game of Thrones in Picard when they killed like Hugh and Egypt. Nobody expected that. Nobody saw that coming, and all of a sudden, because you're dealing with legacy characters.
Right.
And in legacy characters, for the most part, they live forever. World was shocked when Tasha got killed.
Yes.
Huh? People were like, what? How?
That is actually what hooked me on Next Generation. I kind of didn't care for it very much. And then I was like, wait a minute, they killed their security chief. Anything can happen on this show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They went to a place where normally you would not go on these shows. And then they killed Dax, Jadzia.
Yeah. Oh, and that was a really chicken shit move too, on the production side.
Yeah. They caught hell for that.
Yeah.
I mean, with respect to Nicole DeBoyer, man, they really dropped the ball, man. I don't know. I think it was a contract thing or whatever. Man, they should have just given her the.
I think it was the last season, and she wanted to do half as many dates. I think is what it was, and they're like, no, you either do them all or you do none.
I mean, you never know what's going on in those production offices.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
but there could have been a million stories underneath it too.
Yeah, but you know what I thought was really just horrible, man. When it was, it's like the last episode, when they were doing all the montages of each character.
Yeah,
and they're showing like, hey, yeah, basically the best of. And so they get to Esri, and of course, they only have the season to show. I mean, she has a lot of stuff to showcase, but like there was no mention of Esri. Anything with Worf, it was always either Worf and somebody else, but it was never Worf and Jadzia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like some of Worf's best stuff was with Jadzia.
Yeah. There's like, you're dead to me.
Yeah, it's like you are literally Jadzia does not exist. I was like, y'all should have just coughed up the 30,000 or whatever she was getting per episode. Give her the last episode credit. Come on, you guys.
Yeah. Did you watch Babylon 5?
I really didn't.
Okay. So there was something kind of like that. The show was canceled, so they actually scrapped all of season 5 and put it in season 4 so they could wrap the story. And then Warner Brothers bought the show.
Right.
So he ended up having to do stuff like they had the show ender, which they filmed because they had ended the show. Well, now they needed to put that off till the end of season 5. But one of the people who was in that episode didn't sign up to do season 5. So he had to come up with money to pay her for that episode to put her in the and he had to jump through some hoops to get that last thing to work,
Yeah. I don't know why. I just never got into Babylon 5.
It's funny. It's Babylon 5 is the reason I never got into Deep Space Nine.
Well, they were so similar too.
Yeah,
it's like it was almost like you had to choose.
Yeah, heavy story arcs, darker stories. They were very similar to each other.
Yeah, but I was too loyal to Star Trek to want to jump ship, or I wanted to enjoy both. I really tried. I don't know, for some reason I just. It's on HBO Max and I have it. I might go ahead and start watching it.
Just keep in mind when you do that, season 1 is pretty lightweight. There's a handful of good episodes. There's 1 or 2 great episodes, but there's some of it that's just
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, Rico, I think I've probably taken up enough of your time, and my dog's trying to take my shoe off my foot, so I think she's telling me something here.
Well, I think the dog is telling you more than anything. Jeremy, I had the best time, man. It was time well spent, and I enjoyed talking to you, man. This was great. I want to do it again. Let's do some more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got each other's contact info, so that's not a problem. Anything? Did you have any other projects or websites or anything you want to drop out there before you go?
I always ask people to follow me on Instagram. It's I am Rico Anderson. I am Rico Anderson on Instagram and Twitter, and also on Facebook. And,
it's true. He's actually Rico Anderson everywhere he goes.
I am Rico Anderson, which is my handle. So yeah, why not? Also, there's a rapper named Rico Anderson. So
is there?
Yeah. There's a rapper. His name is Rico Anderson. There's also a DJ who goes by DJ Rico Anderson. So unusually, and they're all black, which is like. Wow, because my name's not a common name. It's not like Mark or John or or Steve. It's like,
I can see like Rico is probably like on the East Coast for the black community. It's probably a little more common.
Well, I'm from the Midwest, so, it's East Coast adjacent. So.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't know you're from the Midwest. I thought you were from that place up north there.
Right. Well, I grew up as a kid in Chicago. So,
okay. Wow, that is the Midwest. Yeah. No, see, Rico would be a little more common a name there.
Probably so. So when you think about it. Yeah, I grew up as a kid in Chicago, and when we were 11, when I was 11, we moved up north to Northern California.
Oh, be darned.
Yeah. So.
All right, on. Well, hey, thank you for doing this. It's always a pleasure to have you on and get to, shake your jaw a little bit. But, so everybody go check out I Am Rico Anderson. Give a shot to a show over there on Apple TV, Truth Be Told.
Truth Be Told, yes.
And, again, Chris is out. He's on SETI Alpha 5 taking care of family business. So normally he would tell us what next week's episode is going to be about, and usually he's wrong. So this week I'm just going to do with my regular closeout is if you have a question, comment, or theory you would like to run by us, head up our website at strangenewtrekshow.com or follow the links in the show notes for this episode in your podcast app of choice. Please rate and review / like and subscribe to us wherever you listen. It's one small step for you, but a giant leap for the show. Special thanks to Miguel Esparza for the Strange New Trek theme song and to Will Harding for all his hard work in the YouTube department. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to set your phasers to stun, and we'll see you on the next Planet of the Week.